Jonathan, it is so great to be here with you today.
What a pleasure to be with you here today, Kelly.
So when I think about entrepreneurial teams, and I happen to run an entrepreneurial organization as an integrator, I'm thinking about all the issues that I face every day. And there's always issues. That's life, that's business. What does that make you think?
Every conversation is a negotiation.
Yes, it's true. And what do you mean by that? Tell me more.
I like to say, anytime I want or I need is in your head or your counterpart's head, you're in a negotiation.
Right. Do people really recognize that they're in a negotiation most times?
The most dangerous negotiation is the one that you don't know you're in.
Yeah.
The negotiations are everywhere. They're with your kids, they're with your neighbors, they're with your spouse, they're with your, in business, they're when you're at the grocery store in line. They're everywhere. And the way we talk to people and the way we make people feel, we can get amazing things done if we hear them and they feel heard. And otherwise, we don't want to frustrate someone who could hurt us by doing nothing.
Mm-hmm. And so if I think I might be in negotiation, what's the best way to make that connection and to work through whatever it is that is the issue?
Well, the first and most important thing is to listen. And when I say listen, I mean you need to listen for, why did they just say what they said? Not listening to hijack and say, oh, let me make my point now. You literally have to have them feel heard and remove yourself as a threat.
Do you think intentions play a role in that? The other person believing that your intention truly is to listen?
Well, people can smell intent. We're built to smell intent. So if your intent is bad, people can tell.
Right, you can feel that. Is that part of the negotiation process, would you say?
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah. How do you think about that? If you've told me stories before when you go to a hotel and there's something that you need or want for yourself, what is your process for how to walk that out? You're walking up, it's the receptionist, the person who's checking you in the lobby. What's your process?
Well, I just did it yesterday. Got here at 10:30. It's early, so I never know if I can get the room. I'm like, oh, I'm another one of those guys, the early bird. I'm gonna probably ruin your day. How hard would it be for you to get me a room at 10:30 in the morning? And I'd like one that's close to the elevator. So I got 1901 right next to the elevator.
And how was that approach disarming to the person you were talking to?
Well, the first thing I did was I didn't show up and say, well, I'm a Marriott Titanium and you should know who I am.
So not leading with status or ego or anything like that. You're just kind of showing up and just being authentically just curious almost, right?
Being curious, like my mantra is to stay curious. And my mantra is to treat everyone the way I'd like to be treated.
Which is a great platinum role, right? When we think about leadership teams, how does that translate? So we can be walking around at a hotel like we're doing, at the airport, anywhere we live in life, but then we enter into working with leadership teams here at EOS and working with entrepreneurs. What does entering the danger and dealing with difficult issues and negotiations look like?
Well, I like to say 70% of getting EOS to work is creating a high performance team. The only way we can build that is by creating team health. And so I didn't understand when I first became an EOS implementer how important the ability to facilitate team health was. And I kept running into the buzzsaw on really rough team health issues. And so I spent a long time learning how to facilitate, because I think facilitation is the difference between a good implementer and a great implementer.
And so what does good look like? What does great look like? And what does poor look like as a facilitator in a room working with the team?
The good looks like holding the room, but failing to enter the danger. Like when you know something's really going on and you're afraid to say something because you don't want to put your fee at risk. Versus, I'll give you an example. I had a client where we had booked a meeting a year in advance. The CFO doesn't show up to the meeting. Okay.
Kind of a problem.
There's two operating partners in the room from the private equity firm, and they're not there because he's doing a good job. So we check in the room, and there was actually 16 people on the leadership team. Not one of them mentioned the fact that the CFO wasn't in the room. So I said, I started my conversation by, my check-in was like, I have bad news. We can't move forward until we deal with the fact that the CFO is not in the room.
Mhm.
And these two guys who showed up today from the private equity firm, they're not here because he's doing a great job. And he's not here because he's doing a great job, he's hiding. So why don't we check in again? That's what, expert facilitation looks like.
Right. So when no one else will call it out, you are the one who holds that space and you call it out.
I call it out and I'm not always comfortable calling it out. I'm usually not comfortable calling it out. I'm like, please don't make me be the one to call this out. Please, someone of the 16, someone call it out.
So where'd you learn that? Or what is it in you that is okay doing it now, even if you're uncomfortable?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's a skill. So I think EOS is a trade. It's not really a profession. And when I say it's a trade, it's a craft. And when I realized, I once had a session where I had a woman cry for 8 hours in the session. And I'm like, well, I didn't handle that well. I wasn't even sure what to do. I'm like, I'm not a marriage and family therapist. So what I realized at that point was I needed coaches to go teach me how to do these skills. So I started with Dr. Dino, just learning traditional facilitation. Mary Pat is my EQ coach, so I have an EQ coach, and then Chris Voss is my negotiation coach. So I have 3 coaches who help me with those really difficult conversations.
And how has that made a difference? What have you noticed by kind of curating your own little pack of coaches that can help you become your best? How has that worked?
Well, the amazing thing is I can call them if I have a bad session. So I immediately will go into an after action summary with them and go, here's what happens. What did I own? What did I miss? How could I do better? Sometimes I've used all 3 of them on a really bad situation, and they all say something with different language around it, but basically say the same thing. Like, it's interesting. It's all brain science how these conversations work.
Yeah, that's great. And so when you're in a session or when you're working with a team, having been through lots of coaching over time, and you're back to the negotiation theme, how are you using that to really get to root issues and help people recognize that they really are kind of maybe it might be at a standstill with one another and they're inadvertently in a negotiation, but they don't realize it?
If you've done enough of this work, you're generally, like, I'm not afraid of whatever the outcome is of saying what I'm feeling. So I use tactical empathy. So tactical empathy is, I have an intuition and I'm going to verbalize that intuition. And I will literally verbalize the intuition. The interesting thing is, if I'm wrong, the urge to correct from the other party is so great that they will correct me. So I don't have to worry about being type A and getting it wrong. They'll fix it if I got it wrong.
It works either way, because if you've gotten it right, your intuition is right, they can confirm it,
Yes.
move forward. And if you didn't get it right, it elicits them to correct you. So either way it works.
Either way it works.
Strategy that works.
Right.
Tell me a story about where you've used tactical empathy in the session room and how did it completely change the conversation?
I'll tell you maybe 2. So I had a family that was primal screaming at each other in the room. Like, literally yelling so loud that I couldn't speak because they were yelling at each other. So I went to the door, I opened the door, I said to them, the neighbor said, you're being too loud. Can you quiet down a bit? The neighbors weren't there. But I just went to the door and at least broke the conversation at that point. And then from there I said, okay, so here's the deal. Family first. I don't really care about the business. So you get to choose. You can go for a walk around the block or we can end the session. But I'm not breaking the family. We're not breaking the family. So just being very, very present with that family. And the family all came together after that.
I got to hear the second story.
Well, here's the second story. There was an HR person who made a mention of someone and something. And I could see in her eyes that she really wanted to tell us about it, but she wasn't sure where the boundary was. So there's this technique, it's called the label. And I said to her, it seems like there's a reason you're asking. So upward inflection, use the label, and all of a sudden, boom, the floodgates came out. She shared all the details of what was happening. It's a technique I like to use all the time. And my intuition was there was a reason that she was asking. I just didn't know exactly what she was talking about. And instead of backing her into a corner, I used like 7 words and floodgates came out.
Sometimes the most simple thing actually is what opens that door.
For sure.
That's a great community story. And that's something that I've really noticed about you, Jonathan. You are very open, direct, honest, and it's paired with caring. That's sometimes an unusual combination for any coach, teacher, facilitator, implementer. How do you combine the two and make sure that you can be present with both?
I think first you have to not be worried about getting fired. And you have to really care about the other party, more so than the paycheck.
Does that impact which clients you choose?
Yeah, I'm definitely not choosing clients who I know are going to be hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating.
Yeah, sure. Because you want to make sure that when you're working with the team that you can give absolutely your best and that it's a good matching for you too.
Yeah, and they're going to in fact follow the rules or follow, do their best to have the system work.
Right. What would you share with implementers who might be concerned or not know how to choose their own clients? What do you look for? How do you make sure that you're getting that right match?
Well, I think that you just follow what the EOS target market is. If you just follow the target market, it's a great place to start.
And why is that challenging? Sometimes that's challenging for our implementers because
they need the money. So they lie to themselves that this is going to be a great client. And in fact, you have happy ears and you think it's going to all work out. And the reality is you have to trust your intuition and actually call it out. And so when I'm talking to a client for the first time, I'll say, I don't take every client. I'm very choosy, and you're gonna decide, and I'm gonna decide, and then we'll go. My clients call me their 12th man on the team, so I am the 12th man on the team. I'm not there day to day, but I will jump on the field if there's a problem.
And you've recently taken everything that you've ever known about being in the entrepreneurial space and being an implementer, and you've written a book recently. Tell us about your book.
No, well, the book's called Fight Less, Win More. It's the missing manual for Never Split the Difference. Never Split the Difference is kind of like traction, but for negotiations. And the book was in the top 20 on Amazon, new release the week it came out, and it continues to sell.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And how can entrepreneurial teams use it? What is the number one thing? If you had to pick one, that's probably a hard question, but if you had to pick one thing that your book can help entrepreneurial teams to do, what is it?
Is to be better negotiators. It literally lays out the roadmap for becoming a better negotiator.
So in any issue, which we talk a lot about in EOS, for any issue, it really helps you to walk that out.
For sure.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Kelly.
With us.
Appreciate it.